Penguin Random House Audio presents The Weather Detective, Rediscovering Nature's Secret Signs by Peter Wohlleben. Translated by Ruth Ahmedzai Kemp. Read for you by Nicholas Guy Smith. Introduction. On Nature's Trail. The moment we step out of the door and stroll through the garden or a nearby park, we are surrounded by nature. Thousands of processes, from the minute to the gargantuan, are unfolding all around us, and they are fascinating and beautiful to behold, if only we open up our senses and take notice of them. In the past, it was vital that everyone could recognize and interpret these signs. People were dependent on nature and intimately familiar with it. Nowadays, fully stocked supermarket shelves, constant energy supplies, and measures in place to ensure us against any conceivable act of nature all trick us into thinking that we no longer rely on our ancient bond with the natural world. Our distance from nature is particularly obvious during hot, dry summers. While farmers and foresters are desperate for rain, most of the urban population is delighted to hear forecasts predicting ongoing dry weather, oblivious to the impact of a prolonged drought. And yet, in the face of climate change and damage to the environment, it is more urgent than ever that we recognize and understand the signs of nature. Only then will we appreciate what we stand to lose. Television, radio, and the internet all make gazing out of the window to find out what the weather is like rather redundant. We have countless specialized services at our fingertips to let us know what is going on outside in the garden. There are regular updates for everything we could possibly imagine wanting to know about, from whether we're faced with rain or shine, to when birds will migrate or aphids hatch, and such information is readily available for anyone interested to look it up. If you want even more precise prognostic data, you can simply install an electronic weather station outside that sends a live feed to you in the comfort of your living room. But if you enjoy gardening and spending time in nature, you can manage perfectly well without these bulletins updating you constantly about the weather. We can glean most of the same information from clues around the garden, from the animals and plants in our local area. In fact, even from the inanimate environment. Whether it's forecasting what's ahead or assessing current weather events, whether it's insect infestations or when it's safe to say a season has started or ended, you can read all of this data from your garden much more accurately than any newsreader from a teleprompter. There can be a huge difference, after all, between your garden and another location just a few miles away in terms of how a natural event unfolds and the impact it has. And that is ultimately why we look to media forecasts, to assess the situation on our doorstep. This guide will help you to decipher the vast quantities of information you can glean from your local environment and especially your garden. You can become your own nature expert. It will address many everyday questions that in the future you'll be able to answer for yourself. And many phenomena will suddenly be easier to understand when you know the background. The most important motivation for writing this book was the prospect of encouraging more people to take pleasure in time spent outdoors and relaxing outside. How wonderful it is to experience things consciously that you had until now passed by obliviously. How exciting it is to foresee changes in the weather and in flora and fauna before they happen. When we are out and about, experiencing our surroundings with all our senses, nature is closer to us than ever before, and the ancient bond between us and our environment can be renewed. Chapter 1. What will the weather be like? Every TV or radio news bulletin is always followed by the weather report, and it is often better than it's reputed to be. Forecasts of up to a week in advance are about 70% likely to be true, while there is a 90% success rate for those covering 24 hours ahead. Looking at it the other way, this means every 10th weather forecast misses the mark. The reason for this is chaotic weather conditions that simply cannot be predicted. I find it very irritating that presenters never admit to this with a statement like, "Because of the current situation, today's data is very uncertain." You simply never hear that. Nevertheless, it can't hurt to look outside and to read the signs for yourself if you wish to check what the clouds are up to. Over the years, you stand to develop a strong sense of what is going to unfold in the next few hours. Cloud towers and rosy sunsets. The evening sun is a much-loved prophet. If it sets with a warm, rosy glow, it is taken as a sign of sunshine the following morning, as in the rhyme, "Red sky at night, shepherd's delight." This happens because the sunbeams stream in low through the atmosphere from the clear skies in the west and light up the clouds, slowly drifting off to the east. And since, in Western Europe, the weather usually comes from the west, a broadly cloudless western horizon means clear skies for the following few hours. Things are the other way around with rosy dawn skies. The saying goes, "Red sky in the morning, shepherd's warning." This is also usually right, for the sun rises in the east, where the sky is still clear, and shines onto the clouds gathering in the west, which will rapidly spread and fill the sky. Every rule has its exception, of course. When the wind blows not from the west, but from the south or the east, red skies at sunset or sunrise bear no prophetic significance. The wind direction can itself be used as a forecasting instrument. The west wind carries moist sea air from the Atlantic, which form clouds and often rainfall. As clouds insulate the earth like a blanket, they influence the temperature. Dense cloud cover in the winter prevents it from dropping as severely as when there are blue skies, by reducing heat loss at night. However, there is a greater chance of rain with a westerly wind. In summer, meanwhile, cloud cover prevents hotter spells, as it keeps the Earth's surface in the shade. South winds bring warmth from the Mediterranean or even the Sahara. In summer, these southerly winds can trigger a heat wave, and in winter they often carry storms in their luggage. This is because on their way across Central Europe, they meet polar air masses that flow to us from the north, bringing about a violent exchange as the cold air mingles with the hot air. This can, of course, also happen with cold north winds as they come into contact with unusually warm winter air. The east wind promises stable conditions and a clear sky. In summer, it is very warm, and in winter, bitterly cold. Without protective cloud cover, every season shows its extreme side. To determine the wind direction, you can't beat the classic weathercock. The cockerel spins about on his seat of a cross, whose 4 arms each bear a letter for the 4 points of the compass. Why not install a weather vane like this in your garden or on the roof of your house? As the cock always looks in the direction from which the wind blows, assuming it is correctly installed, it shows the wind direction and thus allows you to predict the coming weather. The key players in determining the weather, however, are the clouds. Whether the weather will be fine or poor, whatever our criteria, depends on the presence of clouds.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?